Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Sun Devil Source. I'm Gabby Chernoff. Alongside me is Chris Cartman. We're here following ASU scrimmage under the lights at Mountain America Stadium, their last one before classes start. We'll bring you all of our analysis here in the coming minutes. But some big news we did just get is that the senior nickelback Mason Williams did decide to retire from football. So, Chris, what do you make of that?
Kind of a big deal, unexpected. He had been competing with Cole Martin for first team reps at that nickel position. It was a good battle. I thought that Mason Williams was having a really good camp. He worked on his play strength, got bigger and stronger over the last year. They've been working Shamari Simmons at nickel in the last week, which makes sense now that we know this news. They're going to be fine there on the back end, but Mason Williams definitely, you'd rather have him on the team than not.
Yes, and that was some interesting news for everyone to hear for sure, but kind of jumping in, a big storyline all fall camp has been who is going to be the starting quarterback. We saw everyone take pretty equal reps here as far as Levitt, Sims, and Bourget, but we should get a pretty good announcement of who that starting quarterback is going to be in the coming days, but all signs right now are pointing towards Levitt. Chris, what do you think in that regard?
I think it's a done deal. Jeff Sims didn't struggle as much tonight as in the prior scrimmages that we've seen, but certainly far down, I would say, from what we've seen from the play of Sam Levitt in the overall scrimmages. Trenton Bourget had a very good performance tonight, working with some second team, some third team offense. He did have a bad interception, but he connected it on with Coben Bourget's brother on a number of plays and moved the ball fairly well. Levitt overall in this camp, I thought, has played quite well. Very few jeopardy throws, not many interceptions in 11-on-11. He scrambles for first downs, makes unannounced plays, pretty good pocket feel. There's a lot to like about his future. I think he is the most important player that Kenny Dillingham may ever coach, because as a redshirt freshman, somebody who could grow into this role over the next 3 to 4 years, he has compared him as having a similar mental makeup and some physical tools as Bo Nix, who of course at Oregon last year was one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And if the progress of Levitt can be anything similar to what it was with Bo Nix over the course of his college career, then Kenny Dillingham is in business with this offense.
Definitely a bright future for Levitt if he continues on this rapid path of improvement that we've seen in fall camp. But moving along the offense, we have the running back position. Guy who got a lot of reps today was Jason Brown. He had quite a few good runs, and just everybody in that running back room got some really good reps, and we got to see a lot really out of everybody. So what did you see there?
Yeah, they held out Cam Scadaboo and other players because you don't really need to have those guys taking extra wear and tear on their body. But as you said, Jason Brown, he's their sixth running back, and he just would not go down. He was fighting for extra yards, great contact balance, strong, twitchy for a freshman. He's not even going to play probably this year because of DeCarlos Brooks looking better than he did last year. Raleek Brown is a very talented, different type of a player at that position. They have Kyson Brown is much improved from last year and should be in the mix somewhere. And then Alton McCaskill transferring in from Colorado is a high upside player who's just still getting acclimated to this system. It's as deep as I've ever seen it at running back for ASU and should be very good at the top. They don't have that elite NFL guy like a Rashad White or somebody that they've had in the past, but they're going to get very good play out of the position.
And then as far as the wideouts, the first two touchdowns we saw today were receptions by Malik McLean and Jordan Tyson. But pretty good day from all of those groups of wide receivers in the offense. So what did you see on that end?
Yeah, Jordan Tyson's probably one of their best NFL prospects long term. I think he's going to be much better than he was a year ago. Still wasn't recovered from the injury. And then Jake Smith had a really good return. They missed him on a deep ball that probably should have been a big play. There have been several of those throughout camp. Malik McLean caught a touchdown. He's been a good addition from Penn State as a post-spring guy, 6'4". He's agile and does a lot of different things well for his size. We know Melquan Stovall is quite reliable. They have Derek Asubio as a backup slot guy. We haven't even talked about Xavier Guillory, who's been with the ones very consistently, and he's had some good practices. Troy O'Meary has been, not in 11s through a lot of fall camp after hurting himself in spring ball with his ankle. You put all that together, and they have about 7 guys that are quite good. And Zechariah Sample, who's their third-team return man, also had a good night and is one of their better athletes on the team. So they are in good shape there.
Yeah, and then for tight ends, it's become increasingly apparent that Shimon Mateer is probably their best guy in that regard, but I'll let you talk all about that.
Well, yeah, he just had the one-handed catch for a touchdown at Camp Tonazona. He's athletic at 6'5", but he also plays with an edge, physicality they didn't really have last year. When you look at the guys that they lost who transferred out, Jason Mons has a totally different group, and you see physicality at the point of attack and the ability to give yourself some different things offensively that you can do in your run game and your RPOs between Marquiston Douglas, Shimon Mateer, and then of course Cameron Harple coming in from San Diego State as a third option. He's pretty solid. We've seen Colson Aarons, one of the better walk-ons, had a touchdown catch out here, and he's made a number of plays and deserves a mention.
And then that last position we haven't covered yet on the offensive side of things is the O-line. Now, Kenny Dillingham did just say that those first and second groups of offensive linemen did kind of get dominated by the D-line today. So what did you make of that?
Well, look, they held out Lee Faltano. I think he played one series. Cade Briggs wasn't out there. Sean Na'a hasn't practiced the last couple days. So that's like a few guys that they haven't really had the services of. So that's when you get to the second team, that's where it starts to get a little bit dicey, and pass rush has been able to get home quite often against those guys. I do think, though, that their first team players, when they're all out there, are going to be good. Now, they have had some struggles from a pass pro standpoint on the edge against better pass rushers like Clayton Smiths and Prince Dorbas, Elijah O'Neill's of the world. So we're going to have to see. Maxie Hunter at right tackle is very new to the position, and left tackle between Emmett Boley and Josh Atkins, when they don't have Jalen Clem, that's a little bit of a question mark. They're looking at Bram Walton at tackle and guard. I'd say left tackle is maybe the biggest question mark on the offense right now, followed by quarterback just because of the youth and inexperience.
So we have all the offense covered now. We'll move to the flip side of the ball with the D-line. The defensive ends looked pretty good today. What did you think of that?
That's been one of the standout positions all camp. As I said, Clayton Smith, really good pass rusher. I think he'll be a guy who can maybe get 10 sacks this year or close to it if he stays healthy. Prince Dorba hasn't been out there, got banged up at the Camp Tonazona scrimmage, so he's not in 11s. We'll see what happens with him, but he's good. Elijah O'Neill is probably one of their most improved players overall, I would say, on the team. Kenny Dillingham said that. I had just been saying that to Jeremy Hawks before that, ASU's SID. And then they have a few other guys that are kind of doing well. Justin Watley can play inside or out as a pass rusher, and Roman Petrie is another option, and Jamon Tapp. So they have dudes who are going to be able to rush the passer. And by the way, that is ASU's quarterbacks have been under duress quite a bit in this camp, especially the second team. Jeff Sims done him no favors, and he's fallen off the radar as a result of it. But I think that's going to continue to play well as ASU gets into opponents.
Yeah, and Kenny did say, too, that with this defensive line, they just have so much more depth. They're a little bit more experienced than the offensive line. So that's why the O-line was kind of dominated, was just because of how good he thought the defensive line played. So on that same note, the tackles.
Yeah, super deep. Usually you don't get to like your sixth tackle and who you feel good about. But in Tristan Monday, a guy who's not really taking a lot of 2 deep reps, JP Dieter got banged up, it seemed like, but he's been good outside of the top 4. CJ Fight is at the top, along with Jacob Kangaika, who had a couple sacks and played well. He's good because he can anchor inside, but then he also has some pass rush ability creatively. And then Jeffrey Clark has been one of their best additions, developing from the spring till now, with his twitchiness on the interior. And then Zach Swanson coming from Texas post-spring is another option. Their D-line coach, Dyron Reynolds, told me that he feels confident they're going to be able to stop the run this year. So we'll see if they can make good on that.
And then as far as the linebackers, one of the most, if not the most, improved position on this Sun Devil football team, led by Keyshawn Elliott. What do you think of that group as a whole?
Maybe the best improved on the team. Keyshawn Elliott's a stud. I mean, 111 tackles last year, pound for pound, maybe the best athlete out there. Jordan Crook from Arkansas coming in, his improvement has been really great. And then they have Cyrus Fiasu, Kayla McCullough, Tate Romney. They're deep, and they are going to be much better.
And then as far as the cornerbacks go, that's probably the position they lost the most from last season. So how is that looking as they kind of try to rebuild that group?
Yeah, they didn't take a post-spring addition after they lost Ed Woods, which was a little bit of a concern issue, I thought, for them. But you have a few guys out there. Keith Abney, Javon Robinson, those guys have looked good. LT Welch has been, I think, steadily improving. They have freshmen who are super talented. Rodney Bimage, Plaz Johnson, Tony Lewis, and Kuba's only 17, Chris Johnson. So one or two of those guys will probably have to get out there at some point and get their feet wet. Rodney Bimage is the most likely.
And now we'll move to all the way back to the safeties. And Kenny Dillingham and Brian Ward have just sung their praises with how deep they are, how many guys they feel confident that they could play at that position. So what are your thoughts on all 4 or 5 of those guys that seem to be getting all the praise from the coaches?
Yeah, Shamari Simmons, team MVP last year. Xavion Alford's been around the ball as much as anybody. Their second team between Miles Rouser and then Kamari Wilson. Those are former 4-star recruits out of high school, and they're not going to start here, and they're very athletic. This is the most athletic safety 2 deep I've seen in a long time at ASU. And then Montana Warren flies all over the place making plays, but he's a redshirt freshman, and he probably wouldn't even get on the field that much. That's their best defensive position probably.
And then Kenny Dillingham did tell us a couple days ago they're kind of cross-training that safety and nickelback position. We saw Shamari Simmons at that nickelback at the beginning of this week. So what do you think of that as a whole?
Well, yeah, with the decision by Mason Williams to retire, it makes sense that they're looking at Shamari Simmons there in the event that maybe Cole Martin goes down. That's the move that you want to make. They also could potentially move Keith Abney from corner to nickel because he played nickel in the spring as another option, but then that thins you out on the outside. So that's a little bit of the concern. I think probably they'd move Shamari Simmons given their talent at safety. If Cole Martin stays healthy, they'll be fine.
Well, if you've made it this far, we thank you very much for watching. We'll take an off day Sunday tomorrow, as will the team, and then right back at it. We'll bring you all the coverage from Monday fall camp. Next week, classes do get started for the guys on this roster. So until Monday, Gabby Chernoff and Chris Cartman for Sun Devil Source.